Hi there, happy Thursday. So I'm so excited about today's episode of Uncomplicate Your Business. And to kick us off, I wanted to share this memory that popped up for me. It's December 2010, and I was getting ready to dive back into my business after taking nearly an entire year off for my maternity leave. And my coach asked me, well, what are your big goals for 2011? That's the type of questions we tend to ask this time of year. And I told her, I want to work just 25 hours a week. I want to take my business 100% online so that I can work from home with these two little babies. And I want to cross a 6-figure mark in gross revenue. I knew exactly what my goals for the year ahead were going to be. Now, that coach might have thought I was a little bit crazy, but I hit each and every one of those goals that entire year. And I continued to steadily grow my business year after year without working more than 25 hours a week, which means I have time for those big rocks, the biggest priorities in my life. If you missed last week's show all about the big rocks, it's a great one to go check out. And for me, these are things like taking a daily walk, going on regular date nights with my husband, and leading my daughter's Girl Scout troop. So if you're ready to work less and live more in your business, then you won't want to miss today's episode on Uncomplicate Your Business, because I'm going to show you how I get it all done in less than 25 hours a week. I'm your host, Rachel Cook, and I'm a business growth strategist for women entrepreneurs. And I've been coaching entrepreneurs to create more ease and less stress in their businesses for over a decade now. And today we're going to talk about how you can be more strategic in the way that you approach your work week so that you can get more done in less time. And if 25 hours a week just seems a little crazy to you, like that, there's no way that's possible, I can almost guarantee that by implementing what I'm about to share with you today, you could easily save yourself at least 10 hours a week just by putting this strategy in place in your business. So if you're just joining me, welcome. And as we get ready to dive right in, I would love to hear from you. My question of the day is, what would you be able to do more of if you could work less? Seriously, if I could just hand you back an extra 10 hours a week, what does that make time for that you haven't had time for in the last couple of months or even years? Would you have more time for your family and friends? Would you be giving yourself that extra hour so you could take better care of yourself, whether that's like me, going on a long walk or going to a yoga class, going to spin class, going to hang out with some friends? What would that extra 10 hours a week do for you and your family? I'd love to hear from you. So just share in the comments and let me know what comes up for you. I remember 10 years ago, I was working 75 plus hours a week as a corporate consultant, most of the time driving from client to client to client in my little 2007 Prius. And I was getting to the point where I knew I was on the road to burnout. And this was the same time, you might remember this book by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Workweek. And I remember actually coming up, seeing the cover at a bookstore and just thinking, that is ridiculous. That is the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. It had to be a scam. There was no way you could possibly only work 4 hours and still make a great living for yourself. So I was incredibly skeptical, as you might be, when I make a claim that, you could get to the point where you're working 25 hours a week. And I was so skeptical back then that you could have this business that just runs itself, that let you play all day and just travel the world. But that book kept showing up. It kept getting in my way. It kept showing up. And finally, I read it. And even super practical and skeptical me realized I could take a lot of what we was saying and integrate it and apply it into the work I wanted to do so that I could have a business that would really be sustainable. So today I'm going to walk you through my 25-hour work week so you can see exactly how it's possible to run a successful business without burning out. And if you know someone who you think would love to check out this episode, please share it with them. Okay, so hey there, everyone. We are so excited to have you. Welcome to Uncomplicate Your Business, a weekly show where I share how you can keep things simple and strategic to design a successful life and business on your terms. I'm your host, Rachel Cook, business growth strategist for women entrepreneurs. And today I'm going to share exactly how I run my business in just 25 hours a week. You know, as much as we all love our businesses, there's this one huge downside of being an entrepreneur that we never really talk about. And that is, it feels like you can never escape your business. Even when you're not sitting in your office or sitting at your desk, you know, we're reading about our businesses all the time. We're coming up with ideas for our businesses all the time. It's all consuming, which is why it's so ironic that when I talk to so many women entrepreneurs, they tell me the number one reason they wanted to start a business is so they could have more freedom in their lives. We dreamed of a lifestyle business that allowed us to make more time for what really mattered and do work we loved while still getting a life. So how do you make sure that what needs to get done gets done and you still have time for a life? We all have the same 24 hours a day, 168 hours a week. And if you want to have a life, then you've got to consciously make time for what matters most. And I find that too often as entrepreneurs, we just keep getting caught up in all the things that need to get done in order to run our business. We have this huge long to-do list that's always weighing on us. We simply run out of hours in the day to accomplish all the things we want to accomplish. So if you've ever found yourself complaining that you just don't have time for yoga practice, you don't have time to have, home-cooked meals and regular family dinners, you don't have time for those date nights with your significant other, if you have been going through, the last few months and you realize at the end of the week, you're not getting time off. Your weeks just continue to get away from you and suddenly all your weekends are filled trying to play catch up, then you need to hang in here with me today because we're going to break that cycle. So in last week's episode of Uncomplicate Your Business, we talked about why it's so important to make time for your big rocks, your big priority, and how that is the key to making progress towards your goals each and every week. I'm going to grab my jar of big rocks here because this sits on my desk all the time as a reminder of what needs to happen in order to make time for the most important things in your life. So if you saw last week's video, you know exactly what I am holding right now. This comes from a story Stephen Covey taught in his First Things First from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He shares a story of a teacher who pulled out a jar, and the jar represents where you're spending your time in your life. It represents that 168 hours a week. And the way most people approach their time is they fill it with things that aren't really important and they don't add real value to your life. So surfing the internet, Facebook stalking your high school friends, watching TV nonstop, that is represented with water or sand. Then we do the things that need to get done, but they don't actually move us closer to our goals. They're just the things we need to do in order to keep our lives running. So in my jar here, those are represented by little pebbles. And finally, we have tasks that are what we would call the big rocks. They're going to take a bit more focus and energy, but those are the things that will actually move us closer to our goals. So here's the catch. If you start filling this jar, if I were to pull out everything and separate it again, and we were to start filling it with the sand first, and then the pebbles, and then try to put the big rocks in, it will never work. You'll never have space for the big rocks. But if you empty the jar, put the big rocks in first, and then the pebbles, and then the sand, you find that you actually have time available to let those little things filter around the big rocks. So it's all about prioritization, right? Putting the big rocks in first so that you can continue to make that forward momentum in your life and in your business. So this is a great illustration. If you missed the whole video where I actually put this whole jar together, check it out. It's on my page from last week. But I have some people who are like, okay, this really helps me understand why I need to make time for the big, most important things in my life or my business. But how do I translate that into a practical strategy so that I know what I'm doing each and every day? How can you make space for what matters in a very intentional way, week by week? So if that's the type of question you might have been having, you're going to love this approach. And I call it the model calendar. Hold on. And I forgot to reset my slides. This is the first time I have pulled it all up in this little guy. And I need to turn that guy off. There we go. I love that there's always another opportunity to learn something really cool and new to show these things to you guys. So the model calendar is my approach to how I proactively manage my work, how I sit down and get things done each and every week in just 25 hours. So when it comes to how you approach this week, you really have two choices. Option one, you can live by design, on purpose, and on your terms. Option two is you live by default. You are reacting to the needs and the demands of others. Now, we all know the difference between option one and option two. Option one is sitting down at the beginning of the day and you have a game plan for how you are going to move through your day. Option two is getting up and suddenly your email becomes your to-do list. The text messages become the next thing you focus on instead of you dictating what needs to happen first. So this strategy is all about consciously designing the way that you approach your work week. And it's to help you move from always being reactive, which really leads to overwhelm and burnout, towards being proactive, where you're organizing your schedule to ensure that you're moving your business forward and making time for a life. So a model calendar, it's not, I promise, this is not about mapping out every single minute of your day. That's, first of all, not realistic. And second, I know a lot of us are more creative types. We need just enough structure so that we make progress, but we need flexibility to accommodate us. So you need to know going into this, this is not about the nitty-gritty time management. It's about giving you a framework for how to manage your time with just enough structure. And I also find I need a lot of downtime. You're going to see that in how I created my model calendar. I just need white space. I need time, between finishing up my work for the day and my kids getting home. I need that mental white space. So I'm going to actually walk through with you how we design a model calendar. And I'll say first, grab a calendar. First things first, grab a weekly calendar that's broken down in hours where you can see the full week. However, starting at 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock or whatever that looks like for you. I keep a Google Calendar for this because it's easy to share with my team. And that way they know when to schedule client calls. They know when to schedule team calls. They know when to schedule interviews. They know when to schedule me in for different activities. They can see based on my model calendar what needs to go where. And it really helps us behind the scenes run the business as efficiently as we can. So the first thing I do once I have that calendar is I block out my personal and my family time. And I know this sounds so counterintuitive to a lot of people, but I know how us entrepreneurs are wired. If you don't make time for this first, this big rock first, then you'll struggle to get this time in at all. So I start by thinking about my ideal day for myself and my family. And I love starting the morning by myself. I have 3 little people. If you have kids, you probably know that having some quiet time in the morning before they all come thundering downstairs, it can just make a huge difference for you. And for me, I definitely notice that I am more calm and present for them when I have given myself an hour to wake up by myself, drink my cup of coffee in peace and quiet. I often do a guided meditation, maybe a little bit of a yoga practice. I'll journal for a little bit, use my 5-minute journal, which I love. And it just helps me kind of have that quiet time to gather my thoughts and get ready for my day. And my kids are up at 6 in the morning. They're early risers. So this helps me be present for them. That time is now quality family time. It doesn't feel rushed or chaotic. My husband and I get the kids ready for school. And if you have kids, you know it takes a lot to get 3 little people ready for school. So we have a whole hour blocked off where we as a family are working together. We're having breakfast, we're getting dressed, we're packing backpacks, we're getting ready for the bus. My kids get on the bus at 7:05 in the morning, which is really kind of crazy. It is super, super early. It is actually dark out right now when my kids get to the bus stop. But I've made it a habit. I knew that for me, one of the areas I really struggle in is my own self-care and my own physical activity. So I made it a habit to walk the kids to the bus and then keep right on walking. I have my playlist in, my earbuds in. Right now I'm all bundled up, probably in my husband's jacket. And I go out and I get a walk. Probably I'm up to about 3.5 miles every single morning. And it takes me a little bit over an hour. And that is amazing personal time. Like, it's personal growth because I'm usually listening to a podcast or to an audiobook. I'm getting some physical activity in because I'm getting my walking in. So I usually come home and I'm probably at about 6,000 or 7,000 steps out of my 10,000 steps for the day. That's huge. And then I give myself an hour to get ready. And again, I work from home. My commute is literally, I don't know, a flight of stairs. So it's a transition piece for me. I give myself permission to actually get ready first things in the morning. Now, you can see that right now, my mornings are pretty slow and I give myself a lot of spaciousness. I also think about my evenings. And this is so important for us because without this, it started to feel very chaotic in my house. So I make sure that when my children get off the bus at 2:30, laptop is closed. I am 100% present for them. That is our self-care and our family time. Now, my kids are old enough now to where they can really just go play until dinner, which is amazing. I remember a couple years ago, it was not like that. It meant mommy, mommy, mommy. They always needed me for things. So now I can close the computer and take a nap or read a book or run an errand or, do anything that I just want to do for myself. That's kind of all of our free time. And then each and every evening of our main weeks, we kind of have a game plan. And we found in our family, this really helps solve a lot of challenges. One of the biggest challenges it solves is us having quality time with each other and not just letting the whole week go by and we haven't sat down for a family dinner or we haven't had, one-on-one time, me and my husband. These predictable days really, really make our life a lot similar or a lot easier as a family. So it's all about making time for what matters most for you. If it's a standing date night, if you haven't had a date night with your significant other in more than a month, then schedule it, make it regular, hire the babysitter and just say, hey, the first Thursday of every month, we're going to go out. If you need time with your girlfriends and, you are somebody who needs friendships and you need that kind of quality time, make it part of your calendar. That's honestly one of the only ways you'll build and maintain the types of deep relationships we all want. If you have, yoga classes or Pilates classes or spinning classes that you wish you could attend, pull up their schedule for January and start blocking those in and make arrangements so that you can make that a part of your ideal week. So once you've done this, once you've kind of blocked in your family time, you've made some time for the things that matter most to you, your personal self, your health, your wellness, your spirituality, your relationships, all of the other non-business areas of your life, then we can start to see office hours, right? I know a lot of people tend to work pretty much whenever they find an opening to work. And because they don't know exactly how many hours a week they work and they don't have set office hours, what tends to happen is they overextend themselves. They say yes to way too much because they haven't gotten honest with themselves about how many hours is the ideal number of hours for them to work. So for me, you can see this makes it so clean and easy for me. I know I pretty much have 25 hours a week available for me to do my business related work. It might not be so clean for you depending on a lot of other things. But I just find that if you answer these questions, when do you do your best work? I'm a morning person. I'm not an evening person. After about 6 o'clock at night, my brain starts to get fuzzy. In fact, if you are inside Sweet Spot Strategy, I tease all the time. I'm like, after 6 o'clock, your questions will get answered with gifts. I get tired. That is not the time for me to do my highest and best level work. I know my highest and best level work is going to come earlier in the day. I also know that I can't work in very long sprints. Usually 2 or 3 hours, I need a break. I'm done after that. So knowing that about yourself is really helpful because it's going to help you create boundaries and have more realistic expectations around what you can accomplish each and every week. So once you know your work hours, you can see mine are pretty much from 9 until 2:30 when the kids get off the bus. Then we can start to map out our week. So I always start with what I call my CEO date. You might be thinking, what is a CEO date? Well, I started this practice about 10 years ago, and it's really become one of the most important practices I've ever made for myself and my business. This is a dedicated time in your calendar for you to plan and for you to prioritize your week. It's an opportunity to track your progress towards your bigger picture plan, whether that's for the year or for the quarter. This is when you can review your metrics. This is when you review your goals, your numbers you set for yourself and decide, are you on track? Are you off track? What adjustments do you need to make in order to reach those goals? I'll dive deeper into the CEO date. Next week's episode of Uncomplicate Your Business is going to be all about the CEO date and how I actually use my CEO date to plan my best week ever. But generally, this takes about 3 hours for me every single Monday morning. I do not skip it. I find that when I take the time to plan and prioritize my week, everything else goes much more smoothly. Then once you've done your CEO date, and you've blocked that in your calendar, I do recommend making it, I see some people who love doing these on Sunday evenings because they like to wake up and just kind of jump into things on Monday. I know Monday morning works really well for a lot of people. Some people even like to make their CEO dates Friday afternoons so that they come in again and know exactly what they need to do to hit the ground running. But once you have that time plugged into your calendar, then you need to schedule blocks for your 5 core CEO tasks. Now, this is something I teach inside of my Fired Up and Focused Challenge. So if you've never taken it, this might be new information for you. But these 5 core tasks for entrepreneurs, these are task areas that are required for pretty much every single business. Like there's no optional, you can do customer service if you feel like it. Like, no, this is something all of us have to. We either need to do it ourselves or delegate it to somebody else. Neglecting any of these areas will lead to a lot of problems in your business, and it will often lead to a huge feast or famine cycle in your business where you don't have a steady stream of clients and cash flow coming in. So I recommend scheduling these types of tasks in blocks for each core task area, because what you specifically do in a task area might change week to week. So let's say one week you're focused on getting your nurture marketing activities done, and that looks like writing all of the newsletters for the month ahead. And then the following week, your marketing activity you're focused on is pitching yourself for guest posts or for local interviews. So by just simply blocking out marketing, you'll have the flexibility in there to change the specific activities as you need. Now, the next thing I do as I'm thinking through this process is I choose a theme for each workday. One of my favorite productivity tips is to group like with like. And that's because if you're working on similar types of tasks, you'll actually be able to get into a flow state where you do your best work simply because your brain isn't switching gears too often. The more you change tasks, the more you change focus, the harder your brain is working to try to keep up. So when you can keep like with like, your brain is more efficient and you stay on task longer. So when I look at my model calendar and these tasks I talked about and the idea of creating theme days, I'm going to actually walk you through how I design my week. So Mondays are my CEO days. I start with my CEO date first thing in the morning, followed by a team meeting. And at this stage in my business, I'll say I have a team meeting because I do not do the operations. I don't do the administrative tasks. I don't do customer service. It rarely gets escalated up to needing me to handle something. Generally, my team can handle that. So out of those 5 core entrepreneur tasks, I'm responsible for 3. I've got a team that's responsible for the other 2. It makes a huge difference in how I'm able to handle my week. Now, if you do not have a team in place, you're 100% solopreneur, no worries. I would just recommend creating a little admin ops time for you each and every day. Preferably not first thing in the day, because then you're giving up the chance to get your most important work done first. When I did not have a team, I would block off an hour around noon every day. And that's when I would get in my inbox, work on my calendar, schedule the invoices, any of those admin operations, customer service types of things. I would try to knock them out in just a half hour in the afternoon. So you can see that by doing that, it'll just help you stay more focused in the beginning of the day. You'll also see it says BA CEO date, and that's actually a small intimate group mastermind I run called the Business Accelerator, and I am teaching them this process by guiding them through it. So every week they show up with me for a group CEO date, and we literally walk through what they had accomplished the week before, if they're on track for their goals. They give me their entrepreneur scorecard, something else I teach, and I make sure that they're getting the tasks done that will help them reach their goals. So Tuesdays are my client days. Again, I have theme days. I'm grouping like with like. I have found that the best way to optimize my calendar is to group all of my private clients together instead of just having them spread out all over the week. Having them spread out all over the week was very distracting for me. It prevented me from being able to keep focused. It prevented me from being able to do more creative content creation types of work. And at this point in my business, there was a point where both Tuesdays and Wednesdays were client days when I primarily worked one-on-one. Right now, I actually do not have very many private clients. In fact, I don't even have every Tuesday as a client day. I alternate Tuesdays between client days and content days. So I'll just see my clients 2 times a month, and the alternating Tuesday becomes a content creation day. Wednesday is definitely a content creation day. This is when I am working on new content outlines for this weekly show, Uncomplicate Your Business. It's when I'm writing newsletters, when I'm working on new trainings. It's when I'm updating my programs. Anything related to creating new content, that is happening on Wednesdays. Thursdays are a slightly different type of content day for me because Thursdays are when I host my weekly Facebook Live show. So by Thursday, I've really prepped the show. Like, the show is pretty much ready to go. It's more of a mental prep that I might need to do, just making sure that I feel ready and confident to go live on Facebook, because it is a little bit of an energetic thing to do, to show up here each and every week. And I also have my Facebook Live coaching calls inside of Sweet Spot Strategy, my online mastermind. And then finally, Fridays are a half day for me. I keep it this way so that if something comes up and I need to handle it, you can see I've got plenty of white space. I've got some buffer in there. But Fridays are when I've pretty much used up my creative brain power. So creating any more content is going to be really, really difficult for me. I tend to use these days to either do some biz development, like some new trainings, learn a new skill set, listen to something, a new audiobook, read a new book, things like that, or do an interview. That happens to be my favorite way to attract new people in my business. So my team knows if I'm going to have a podcast interview or a video interview, Fridays are the best day to schedule them. So I hope this starts to inspire you to get more intentional about how you approach your work week. It does take a little practice, and it does take refining in order to get to this point. I can share with you that this model calendar I'm showing with you right now is not the same model calendar I had last year or 2 years before that or 2 years before that. It has changed as my family's needs have changed, as my personal needs have changed, but 25 hours has been pretty much my magic number for my optimum productivity, creative output, ability to stay really present and engaged and still take amazing care of myself and spend that quality time with my family. So if you loved this conversation today, I think you'll love the Fired Up and Focused Challenge. This is a 100% free 10-day challenge all about helping you plan, prioritize, and boost your productivity. You can join me 100% for free at firedupandfocused.com. And thanks so much for being here with me today. I can't wait to connect with you guys again for next week's episode of Uncomplicate Your Business. We'll talk soon.